Hey, what is up? Welcome to this episode of the Wantrepreneur to Entrepreneur podcast. As always, I'm your host, Brian Lofermento. If you've ever had the feeling that you want to start a business, a service-based business that feels like a concierge experience, that has that white glove experience for all of your clients, then you're in for a treat in today's episode because we have got an incredible entrepreneur and a very brilliant guest today who I'm convinced has mastered that craft while delivering an incredible service that so clearly fills a market gap. Let me introduce you to today's guest. Her name is Jill Dillingham. Jill is a seasoned business architect with a proven track record of launching and scaling ventures where none existed before. When a clear need for a multidisciplinary finance and personal management resource arose within her own family, it was an easy and clear opportunity to fill a significant gap in the market. With that, her business, Tight Ship Advisors, was born. At Tight Ship Advisors, they provide concierge-level life management for individuals and families, all of which is a natural extension of wealth management. They focus on the personal side of wealth, helping clients manage their personal cash flow and bill pay, access benefits, navigate healthcare, manage households, and day-to-day financial and lifestyle administration so they can live well and remain financially secure. And I feel like that is a rare picture where it's not just the word holistic, it's actually a holistic approach to all of this stuff. So Jill is brilliant at so many different aspects, and she brings all of that expertise to all of her clients and the way she runs her business. So I'm excited about this one. Let's dive straight into my interview with Jill Dillingham. All right, Jill, I am so very excited that you're here with us today. First things first, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Brian. It's really a treat to be here and get the chance to talk to you this afternoon. Thank you for having me.
Oh, heck yeah. We are so grateful that you're coming on the show because I am so in awe of the business that you've built and really the way that you've carved out that niche. And we're definitely going to talk about blue oceans and all the different strategies that we use. But first things first, let's put the spotlight on you. Take us beyond the bio. Who's Jill? How did you start doing all these cool things?
Oh my. So what is my background? I started out back in the Stone Age of the 90s and began my career really in managed care and consulting. And it was a little too slow for me. And I think like a lot of entrepreneurs, you'll hear that fast pace and wanting to really ideate, solve problems, and really live outside of that box that a lot of traditional businesses and organizations lived within is what initially got us hooked. And I was lucky enough to pivot from the consulting world, Medicare, managed care, into digital media. And it was a great time to be coming up in the world because that was the advent of everything digital. Everything was an opportunity, and it was just a landscape of let's try it. So during that time, I was doing things like launching Patch.com in the Midwest, building out new opportunities around video content, and most importantly, really addressing user experience, and which can be varied depending on not only who you're targeting, what the service or what you're actually trying to convey, and really digging into what could resonate and be of value, and building out new organizations along the way. And fast forward to a period of time where I was resigning or retiring from my last startup and was going to be paying more attention to my kids. There was some hand raising from within my own family about questions about Medicare, daily money management, digital banking, even things with their own estate. And we tried getting them a personal assistant, a bookkeeper, kind of closing this gap between the professional services that we get with our wealth managers, our CPAs, and even our lawyers. And that, how do I make this all come to fruition myself? And my in-laws, who are the family members, really needed kind of a co-pilot that made them feel secure in a lot of things that in today's age, we kind of say, Google it and you'll figure it out. That's not always the best or most efficient solution. Now, fast forward, we create a family office experience and that truly bespoke level of service that client experience everyone expects when they're dealing with their money guy, with their lawyer, with their CPA. We are the ones that make sure that everything is working in concert, that is efficient, and it takes the administrative burden off of our clients and our shared clients with our wealth management partners. And we are now a national company that take this hybrid approach of that personalized concierge service to create a symbiotic relationship between portfolio and personal. And that's pretty much where we're at today and growing every day.
Jill, I so appreciate that background, especially how you talk about the nature of the work that you do, but it's so clear to me that you've picked up the pieces from all of your life experiences leading up to this point to build something that so deeply serves people. And I love the fact that you called it out right there in your own backstory about your emphasis on UX, user experience. I feel like in the world of acronyms, we throw so much attention onto UI because UI is very appealing. We all know when we see a good UI, but I don't think enough people think about user experience. And it's really cool thinking about the fact that you were on the forefront of the new digital era. And we saw, I'm going to call out patch.com. It's a company that I've long loved because I grew up in a small suburb outside of Boston that very much has a community feel. And in the digital era, Patch brought the community feel to online. All of us felt like Patch, our version of Patch, understood our suburbs, understood central Massachusetts. And that's something that's the great aspect of digital. And we're definitely going to talk about, we're on the precipice now of a new emerging technology. Of course, AI is disrupting things. And we'll definitely talk about how that impacts the work that you do and the important role that you play. But I want to start there with UX because it seems to me like it's a common theme throughout your professional career and especially how you run Tight Ship Advisors. Talk to us about the way you think about experience, because I think we can all borrow that.
I think it is so overlooked. And, again, we'll do the spectrum of from patch and hyper local news that wasn't just vanilla 30,000 feet. It really spoke to the neighborhood and was relevant to that community. That's where the strength was. And whether that news source be on paper or if it was going to be at that URL, that user experience was going to be specific and aimed right at that community. And from a revenue standpoint, there is an amazing value to that because of the stickiness of that UX, that UI. And then fast forward to Tight Ship Advisors, addressing that UX, that community, that individual, their specific needs. That again is where stickiness lies and where value lies. So it can be how we get our information, our news, but it can also be how we manage our day-to-day lives, personal finance, risk, all of these things. If we are addressing the individual, their needs, their wants, the UX, then every entrepreneur is going to have a leg up on the competition because they're going to do a better job of engaging and retaining their customers, their viewership, their whatever insert word here is. But that really, I think, is the kind of missed out, overlooked element of really standing up an effective value strategy.
Jill, hearing the way you articulate that, I will say it's a wonderful message here in 2026 because I feel like it's a little bit counter to what has become a cliched advice of just do things at scale. We need to be obsessed with scale. And hearing the way you talk about this, you brought it straight to actually caring about the individual user, the individual client, the individual human being that you're serving. And it's so fascinating looking back at your background because you've worked in big business, huge business. You've worked at Arthur Andersen, and there's so many things that you've picked up along the way, from big business to small business, of course, to even the individuals that you help with Tight Ship. And hearing you talk about that in a world where so many people put the emphasis on scale, I love the fact that more businesses are coming back to that concierge feel, that white glove service feel. Talk to about that, and especially addressing that dichotomy of what people think is a dichotomy of scale versus concierge and white glove service.
Definitely. And I think that is something that it actually can have its own symbiotic relationship. How do you scale something and for tight ships purposes, that service, but retain that high level personalization? And you do not have to compromise both. We do take a hybrid approach where all of our systems are virtual interfaces. Those are all protected in a very large scale way within a digital housing and a digital stack, but we are set up regionally to address and really do that thing that creates the UX, the personalization. Just going in and trying to boil the ocean and saying that from a service standpoint that we're going to be able to address and approach a family or an individual living in an urban area with a complex estate or complex lifestyle in the same fashion that we would approach anyone that's living in the Western U.S., is single with a very simple balance sheet or personal finance profile, that actually offers no value to those individuals. So therefore, engagement's going to be low, retention's going to be low, revisits will be low. You have to really say, this is what we're going to do for all of these personas and be able to address the scale to fit that full spectrum. It's not just about the product and the service. You have to have this side of the coin addressed as well and equally fleshed out. It's the channels. It has to be, you can't skip over it. It's a vital step.
And where does that show up, Jill? Because I do feel, I'm going to call this out to us when we reached out to invite you to come on the show, and we're so grateful that you accepted our invitation. To our pre-production staff, what really stands out about the way that you run Tight Ship is the fact that white glove and concierge are not buzzwords in your line of business. We've read your testimonials. Your clients love it. It sounds like your clients have that feeling, which I think we all strive for, is that they're your only client. Whether it's someone who snowbirds in Florida and they've got life complexities because of the nature of living in different parts of the region, and they've got investments, and maybe they're living their retired life. You already called out. There's so many different individual scenarios. It seems like you all practice what you preach, and you actually give that concierge style service. And so my question here is, where does that show up? And I'm sure the answer is it shows up everywhere, but talk to us about onboarding, talk to us about customer service, talk to us about proactive communication. I'd love for you to take us behind the scenes into where that concierge feeling is in your business.
Definitely. And it's probably also been the Achilles as well. I'll be very, very honest about it, is that customization starts from day one. And it's also makes it difficult in how we describe what we do, because we are going to be that specific and we're going to mean something different to every single individual. Each one of our SOWs, each one of our service contracts is going to be completely customized and different. But we are going to approach from day one, what can we do for you? This is our broad spectrum of capabilities and expertise. If it is a partnership with a wirehouse or an RIA or a CPA, how are we going to help augment and underscore your value? Or if it's a private client coming directly to us, what are your pain points? What can we do to, make the administrative burden kind of wiped off of your plate? And for some, that can be, I have concerns about benefits. There might be a health event or a life event that just needs an extra set of hands that knows what they're talking about when it comes to any of these elements of lifestyle, personal finance, insurance, legal. But then also, is it just you need a bill pay service and need someone that's going to manage multi-entity or multi-household? That's where we sit down and say, we're going to basically take our menu of services and expertise and align those in a fashion that fits your level of comfort. Because at the end of the day, what's most important is that these clients need to feel comfortable not only with us, their assigned advisor, but also the method by which we're doing it. This is highly personal across all facets. So we need to make sure that we're doing this in the manner and fashion and communicating with them from day one that makes them feel comfortable, and we end up getting to retain them as clients for the very, very long term.
Jill, hearing the way you talk about that, it makes me super excited about this era of business. We can talk about AI and technology and how all of that is evolving, but I think, and I feel this, and obviously I talk to founders for a living, I feel like we're entering this beautiful era of the generalist. And it's something that I remember in my early 20s when I started my first service-based agency, which was a marketing and SEO agency. I feel like everyone's advice back then was niche down, pick one industry, have one service, and just crush that. I always felt like, well, I have so many different experiences. My first company was a content-based company, and I went to school for economics, and I know that you and I very much share that in common. And so I felt like I had this depth and breadth of skills, and I wanted to unleash it for my clients. I feel that as a consumer myself, when I work with somebody. I had a networking call the other day with a guy who helps sets people up with benefits. And it was really cool because he is also an entrepreneur. He's previously owned businesses. He was able to talk to me at a really powerful level because he understood me, and he brings that into his work. Jill, I would love for you to talk about that because you have both the depth and breadth of services in your portfolio and ways that you can help people. And again, I think it's counter to what the advice has been for the past 20 years, and you're unleashing it in powerful ways. So talk to us about that.
Yeah, your comments about really digging in and being able to be an expert in this one area. Well, there's of course tremendous value to that from a services and a overall scope standpoint. We're all exhausted. Everybody's got logo fatigue. Let's go back to the original tight ship being the thing that happened to me. Sitting at the dining room table with my mother-in-law and having to walk through, okay, so your retirement benefits. My father-in-law worked for PepsiCo for his entire career, which had about 5 different names, but PepsiCo. But her pension came through and was administered by another party. The benefits that they received was from another third party. She couldn't keep it all straight. But it's all PepsiCo. No, though there's logins for each one of these. All right, so then I've got to go to Via Benefits to renew or change my benefits. Great. But wait, don't I go to Blue Cross Blue Shield for that? Well, that's your healthcare benefits. Well, but then what about Silver Scripts? Well, yes, Via Benefits that administers the benefits for PepsiCo retirees, but you've opted in for the prescription plan that's over here. It's exhausting. So that generalist who can stand beside you, that one single source that does support you, you're not scratching your head going, okay, I go over here for this, but then also the coordination of all those things. And that's really where we're also providing a tremendous value for the wealth management community, because clients expect, this is my money guy. If it's got a large dollar sign attached to it, be it how much the landscaper is costing me or how much my healthcare benefits are, or everyone assumes my money guy is going to be able to assist me with this and advise. And that's not always the case. To have a generalist who understands this entire scope of lifestyle and all of these things and how to work them together, because they all have dollar signs and they all have significant impact, and make them all work together without leaving that on the shoulders of the client, that's where the value is. And that sentiment can really be applied to a lot of different propositions and different businesses of, it's great to have that one capability, but if that's actually just a facet that makes your overall value and reinforces it even stronger, because you can actually address all of these things for your clients or for your target audience, you're just doubling down on your value. That's not only going to drive your CAC, but also your LTV.
Jill, hearing the way you talk about this, I often say on the air for listeners' benefit and for my own that success leaves clues. And I feel like anytime you get to hear the way a founder thinks, there are little clues that they're leaving along the way. And one of those clues that I'm hearing from you, it pops up in quite a few of your answers today, is how partnership oriented your mindset is towards business. A lot of people might be tuning in and definitely when they check out the Tight Ship website, they might think, oh, are you trying to put wealth management firms out of business? And the opposite is entirely true. Those are actually huge partners for you. You are enabling them to better serve their clients, and you are bringing even more satisfaction. You're leaning on them and vice versa. There's so much. You used the symbiotic relationship term earlier in our conversation. It sounds like you have that really collaborative and partnership oriented approach to business. Talk to us about that, because I wish more industries would adopt that. In entrepreneurship, we obviously talk about the abundance mindset, and it's very clear to me that you have that. So take us behind the scenes. What do those relationships and partnerships look like?
Also, I think it's worth noting, go back to the very beginning. Tight Ship was founded in 2018. And at that time, when it was very clear there was a there, this was a gray area of personal finance and a little bit of overall lifestyle management that was a gray area that no one addressed. My initial gut was this was going to be a B2C proposition. Everyone was going to want to feel as great as my mother-in-law. The fact that her wealth manager and her CPA were both calling saying, this is amazing, we've gotten some movement, there was value there, can you go talk to? I was really driven that this was B2C because I was focused on the client and the outcome. Now fast forward to 8 years later, and probably around, it was actually COVID more than anything, where it was, wait, hold on, this might be B2B2C. This partnership element, not only are we creating relief and value for our clients, for the individual, private individuals, we were filling that blind spot within wealth management. So now Tight Ship is clearly of value to both. And that's where it went, okay, we really do need to explore and really start to cultivate these partnerships. How can we help the overall strategy of this channel that truly is dealing with some churn, really, really tight margins? And in any business of any kind, who wants to have their customer call and ask a question that's truly vital, and for them to say, that's not our wheelhouse, or sorry, we can't help you. No one ever wants to say that to a customer, period. We solve that for the wealth management, for CPA, for legal, for all of those in our own fashion of let us help you with this non-revenue generating activity that's vital to you servicing your clients. And so being able to sit down and really address specifically with who I'm speaking with, be it what type of partner it might be, or if it being client direct, where do I add value to our relationship and be able to speak that language. I've consulted with other platforms and other organizations where part of the conversation is we really develop go-to-market is, well, who are we talking to right now? And it can still be just one organization if you're talking to a partner, and if it's that project owner, if it's someone on the sales side, you're really talking about that CAC and that LTV and really addressing it in terms of how do we grow and cultivate your business, your book of business, customer base, whatever it might be. But then if there's going to be also other stakeholders at the table, how do we market that? What does that look like? We need to speak their language. There was one specifically where we would have CFOs at the table, and I think I basically said, guys, he doesn't care if we're talking about widgets. We need to give him the number. What's the relief on the margin here that he's going to go, yes, let's do this. We can have the customer and that UX conversation over here with this stakeholder, but when you're talking about partnerships, especially B2B2C, you need to be able to pivot between all of those discussions that at the end of the day end up creating more value for that end user once again.
Yeah, so well said. I so appreciate you sharing so many of those insights and your attitude to go along with it with all of us here today. And you also spoke towards something in that answer that I wish more entrepreneurs would speak about publicly, and that is the evolution of your company. Look at that. It sounds crazy, by the way, that 8 years ago was 2018. It's insane how time flies, but you're 8 years into this business and you've built something absolutely incredible. And on podcasts, I know this as a host, how frequently it sounds like, oh, Jill had it figured out from day one. Of course, none of us do. It's absolutely an evolutionary process. And you've really hinted at the fact that even your business model has evolved throughout those 8 years. With that in mind, for listeners' benefits, do you mind talking to us a little bit about what you thought Tight Ship was right out of the gates, how that has evolved, and really with that executive hat on, what does the future look like? Where does your attention go these days as we wrap up? You and I are having this conversation at the beginning of 2026, but there's a world of opportunities ahead.
The journey and the founder journey is definitely, it is emotional and it is varied for sure. And starting off, this was a service, period. It was a sitting at the dining room table, eyeball to eyeball, very not rooted in anything digital. That was my background. This truly was 100% about concierge, bespoke, and that specific family client. And then as things go on, a couple of years, all of a sudden we have COVID. COVID was not going to be friendly to anything that was that very, very bespoke and personal and at the dining room table. And that was a blow. As far as a founder, I went, all right, game over. That was it. Little did we know, and we were able to react by always saying, yes, we can, that this actually did have equal value and could pivot to a hybrid model of that personalized, dedicated service from that advisor, but also do it with the safety and security of a virtual interaction and being able to maintain and execute some of the services that we were supplying and furnishing in a virtual fashion. But then it also showed us that the integration and that coordination between all of the other professional services that are also our partners, along with the clients, actually increased efficiency and security, which flies in the face of what a lot of the belief has been of it has to be siloed. That's where efficiency and security lies. And it actually is not when it comes to financial well-being and financial longevity. So that was the big aha. But you've got to be able to roll with it, and you've got to be able to say, this is what it looks like on paper. This is what our plan is. But in execution, we're going to have to do the incremental pivots every single day, and I'll continue to do it. Now being driven by these partnerships that are national, actually international and large scale with we're now into 5-digit partners. You got to be able to move with, okay, we're a service. Is this a franchise? No. Is this white label? Is this, and just continue to grow it. And that's where organic scale actually lives.
Yes, I love that. This is the truth. I'm so grateful for you so transparently and generously sharing this with all of our listeners, because this to me, and I give you full credit publicly, is that I feel like you truly embrace that holistic term, which is a bit of a cliche in the business world. Everyone wants to say holistic this, holistic that, but I feel like the way that you see the world, it truly is the lens through which you see your clients, your services, your business model, your partnerships. All of that is such a holistic view to how it's one of our founding principles of this show, is that a rising tide lifts all boats, is that we all get to win together. So Jill, I really appreciate that mindset, and I'm so excited to see how you answer this final question, because it's super broad. You can take it in any direction. I always ask it, and that is, what's your best piece of advice for listeners? Knowing that we're being listened to by both entrepreneurs and entrepreneurs at all different stages of their own growth journeys, and as one of us, as a fellow entrepreneur, what's that one thing you want to leave them with today?
I think that's it, is the yes, always the yes, and to not get your feelings hurt when what's on paper is not what is actually going to prove to be successful. I think also I've worked with organizations where they just want to push that round peg in the square hole, and it's not going to work that way. You want to be able to grow, and that's what you actually have to follow. Businesses aren't always going to look the same as when they were originally founded, and those that are going to follow where organic need is and where the market is actually demanding, listen to it, listen hard, really, really lean into all of the people that you're working with that are client facing and the clients themselves. We've now taken on expertise and individual content experts around education, relocation. If you had told me that 2 years ago, I would have been stunned. But again, I'm going to be of service, and the organization is going to be of service to these individuals and how the evolution of their world. So, of course, we all need to ride along with it. And that's where the revenue ends up coming at the end of the day as well. And nobody wants to kind of give that the Heisman. So.
Yeah, so true and so well said. And it's counterintuitive advice when you're just starting out, is that if you just focus on those things, the money inevitably follows. People think you can focus on the money, but it's the other way around. So I so appreciate that perspective. And in the vein of me saying that success leaves clues, talking to each other on a podcast is one thing, but listeners going forth and seeing all the amazing things that you've built with Tight Ship, that's an entirely different experience. So Jill, for listeners who want to find all the amazing stuff that you're up to, drop some links on us. Where should listeners go from here?
Oh, definitely. Please go check out the Tight Ship website. Super easy, tight-ship.com. I am readily available all over LinkedIn, as well as just Google me. And I am door open, always excited to pay it forward as well with other entrepreneurs. One of the most important things, and especially as a solo entrepreneur, that is a big piece of advice of surround yourself with a lot of smart people who will get you out of your box. We tend to be so head down in wearing all the hats that sometimes a good, healthy conversation where we're poking and prodding at how we're approaching workflows, pricing, services, all of it. Have the conversation. That's where the greatest ideas and actually, maybe I should. So either bring on a great team, but also reach out, have other people, give you their input, because you never know what you're going to get from it. I've been humbled a couple of times when I really thought that this was the best path forward, and it wasn't. And if it wasn't for those smart individuals that I leaned on for those just coffee conversations, Tight Ship would not be evolved to where it is today, and hopefully to where it's going to be down the road.
Yes, and listeners, a giant spoiler alert for every single one of you. As the host of this show, I know all too well how few people make that choice that Jill just presented to you. So few people realize that when someone like Jill says, reach out, connect, be in my circle. You heard about those, I call them virtual coffee chats. So Jill, it's so glad to hear that you also feel the same way with fellow founders. But listeners, very few percent of people, less than 1% of people who read a book, watch a movie, watch a YouTube video, tune into a podcast episode actually feel proactive and empowered enough to reach out to the creator and the people that they've learned and benefited from. So be one of those few is the best advice that I can share. And Jill, I really appreciate you coming on the show. Listeners, you already know we're dropping all those links down below in the show notes. So Jill, on behalf of myself and all the listeners, thanks so much for coming on the show today.
It really was a pleasure, and it was great to meet you, Brian. Thank you.